Have you ever tried to learn something totally new and just felt overwhelmed by how much effort it takes?
Oh, yeah, totally.
I recently got into gardening and I had no idea how much work it would be.
Really?
Yeah, there's so much planning and planting and then the constant weeding.
It's definitely a lot more than just sticking a seed in the ground.
Right. It got me thinking about how this happens in other areas of life too.
Makes sense.
Like with spiritual growth, for example.
Yeah.
It can feel like there's so much to do and figure out.
That's a great segue, actually, because today we're diving into Pure Land Buddhism, which offers a totally different perspective on this.
Oh, cool. So this is our deep dive into Buddhism demystified.
Mm-hmm.
How does Pure Land Buddhism approach that feeling of overwhelm when it comes to spiritual growth?
Well, it all centers around Amida Buddha, sometimes called Amitabha. He's the Buddha of infinite light and life.
Okay, I've heard of Amitabha.
He made a bunch of vows to help all beings become enlightened, and one of them was to create the Pure Land.
The Pure Land?
Exactly. It's this realm that's designed to make it easier for people to grow spiritually.
So there's like a whole world dedicated to spiritual growth.
You could say that. It's described as being free from all the things that make it hard for us to wake up, you know?
Like suffering and stuff?
Exactly.
Okay, so how does having this pure land change the game when it comes to our own effort?
That's where the concept of other power, or tariki, comes in.
Other power?
Yeah. It's the idea that we can get help from a power greater than ourselves on our path to enlightenment.
So not just relying on our own strength and willpower.
Exactly. A lot of spiritual paths focus on self-power, which is called jiriki.
Right. You got to do it all yourself.
But Pure Land Buddhism is like, hey, there's this incredible Buddha Amida who's dedicated to helping us.
Wow. So it's like having a cosmic coach in your corner.
I like that.
So does that mean we don't have to do anything ourselves?
Well, not quite. Pure Land Buddhism still values personal effort. There are practices to do.
Okay, so it's not like we just sit back and wait for enlightenment to happen.
It's more like we're acknowledging that we can't do it all on our own, and we're open to receiving help.
That makes sense. It's like even with the best intentions, my garden still benefits from some expert guidance.
Exactly. And in Pure Land Buddhism, that expert guidance comes from Amida Buddha.
Right.
The source material uses this powerful image to explain it. It talks about the river of liberation.
Ooh, that sounds intense.
Imagine you're trying to cross this huge river, and it represents the journey to enlightenment.
And the current's super strong, and I keep getting swept away.
Exactly. It'd be so hard to do it on your own.
That's exhausting.
Yeah.
But then imagine there's this boat waiting for you, and it's steered by Amida Buddha himself.
Okay, now that's a game changer.
So through faith and trust, you step into the boat and let him carry you across.
So the boat is like the practices of Pure Land Buddhism and Amida's guidance is that other power that makes the journey smoother.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we don't have to struggle alone.
I like that. It's like we're still putting in the effort, but we're accepting help along the way. Precisely. The source material really emphasizes that. It's not about being passive. It's about recognizing when we need help and being open to receiving it.
This reminds me of another thing I read about the story of Dharmakara.
Oh, yes.
He was the monk who eventually became Amida Buddha, right?
That's right.
I feel like his story is a great example of the compassion at the heart of Pure Land Buddhism.
Absolutely. His story is incredibly inspiring. So he was this monk who saw all the suffering in the world and vowed to create a place where everyone could achieve enlightenment.
That's amazing.
And that place became the Pure Land. He dedicated his entire life to helping all beings.
So he didn't just want to achieve enlightenment for himself. He wanted to make sure everyone could get there.
Exactly. He made 48 vows in total.
Yeah.
And they all reflect this deep compassion and commitment to helping everyone.
Wow, 48.
Yeah. It said that he even vowed to become a Buddha himself so that he could have the power to fulfill these vows.
That's incredible. So when we talk about trusting in Amida's vow, we're trusting in his commitment to us.
Yes, and trusting that his compassion is powerful enough to help us even when we doubt ourselves.
It's like he's saying, I got you. You can do this.
Exactly. And it's so reassuring to know that we're not alone in this journey. There's a power greater than ourselves that's working towards our awakening too.
Okay, so we've talked about the uniqueness of Pure Land Buddhism, the role of Amida Buddha, and this idea of trusting in his compassionate vow.
Right.
But how does this translate into everyday life? How can we actually bring these teachings into our experience?
That's a great question, and it's one that we'll be exploring in more depth in the next part of our deep dive.
Awesome. So be sure to join us for part 2, where we'll get into practical applications of Pure Land Buddhism and how these teachings can help us live with more peace and ease.
So welcome back to our deep dive on Pure Land Buddhism.
I'm really excited to get into the practical stuff. Like, how can we actually use these teachings in our everyday lives?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So one of the most important practices in Pure Land Buddhism is reciting the Zembutsu. Yeah, you just repeat the phrase, Namu Amida Butsu.
Okay, so it's kind of like a mantra.
It is a mantra, but it's not just about mindlessly chanting it.
Right. It has a deeper meaning.
Exactly. It's about connecting with Amida Buddha, expressing your faith in his vow, and inviting his energy into your life.
So even though we're talking about other power, there's still an active element to it.
Right. You're actively choosing to connect with Amida.
It's not just sitting around and waiting for enlightenment to happen.
It's about being open and receptive to his grace.
Okay, so that makes sense.
The source material also talks about letting go of perfectionism.
Oh, man. That's a tough one for me.
I hear that. It's
Yeah.
something that a lot of people struggle with, especially on the spiritual path.
Because you want to do everything right. You want to be good enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that can create so much pressure and self-judgment.
Totally. It's like you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Right. And Pure Land Buddhism is like, hey, it's okay. You don't have to be perfect.
That's so comforting to hear.
Trusting in Amida's vow means trusting that you're worthy of his compassion no matter what.
Even with all my flaws and mistakes.
Exactly. You're perfectly imperfect, just as you are.
I love that. It takes the pressure off.
Right. It's about accepting yourself and letting go of that need to be perfect.
So it's not just about enlightenment. It's about, finding more peace and joy in our everyday lives.
Absolutely. When you let go of that need to be perfect, you create space for more joy and ease.
And that aligns with, the whole idea of trusting in Amida's compassion.
It's about recognizing that abundance.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all of this ties together.
We're essentially surrendering our ego's need for control and opening ourselves up to a power greater than ourselves.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like we're saying, I can't do this alone. I need help.
And the amazing thing is that help is always available.
It reminds me of that analogy we talked about before, the lamp and the sun.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Our own efforts are like a small lamp. They can only illuminate a small area.
But Amida's compassion is like the sun. It shines light on everything.
So by letting go of that need for control and trusting in Amida, we're basically opening ourselves up to that bigger light.
Exactly. We're aligning ourselves with a power that's way bigger than anything we could do on our own.
And that brings us to another important practice, gratitude.
Yes, gratitude is huge in Pure Land Buddhism.
Why is that?
Well, when you focus on the good things in your life, it shifts your perspective.
From lack to abundance.
Exactly. You
Oh.
start to see all the ways you're already supported and loved.
And that connects back to trusting in Amida's compassion.
Right. It's about recognizing that support and feeling grateful for it.
So it's not just about saying thank you. It's about really feeling that appreciation.
And when you cultivate gratitude, you actually invite more abundance into your life.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. You start to see the good, and then more good things come your way.
Okay, so we have reciting the Membutsu, letting go of perfectionism, and cultivating gratitude.
Those are 3 really powerful practices.
They all help us to connect with Amida's compassion and bring more peace and ease into our lives.
And we'll explore even more practices in the final part of our deep dive.
So we're back for the last part of our deep dive into Pure Land Buddhism.
I can't believe it's already the last part.
Me neither. It's been a really interesting conversation.
It has. Yeah.
I'm really starting to see how these teachings can actually help us in our everyday lives.
Me too. They offer such a unique perspective on spiritual growth.
Right? It's not just about meditating on a mountaintop or something.
Exactly. It's about finding peace and joy in the midst of our regular lives.
Okay, so in the last part, you mentioned a story about a fisherman.
Oh, yeah. That's a great story.
Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so the story is about this fisherman who gets caught in a really bad storm.
Oh,
Yeah, his little boat is getting tossed around by huge waves.
that sounds scary.
It is. And the fisherman is fighting for his life, trying to keep the boat from sinking.
I can only imagine.
He's using all his strength, but it's not enough.
It's like one of those situations where you realize you're in over your head.
Exactly. And he's getting exhausted and terrified and starting to lose hope.
So what happens?
Just when he's about to give up, he sees a light in the distance.
A light.
Yeah,
It's a big ship.
like a rescue ship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in that moment, something shifts inside of him. He realizes he doesn't have to do this alone.
He sees that there's help available.
Yes. And he lets go of the oars, stops struggling, and signals for help.
Wow, that's powerful. He finally surrenders.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example of letting go of self-power and trusting in something greater.
And does the ship see him?
They do. They come and rescue him, pulling him out of the stormy waters and bringing him to safety.
What a relief.
It's like a metaphor for the whole Pure Land path.
Right, like Amida Buddha is that rescue ship.
Exactly. He's always there waiting to help us whenever we call on him.
I love that analogy. So it's not about never struggling or never needing help.
It's about recognizing when we need help and being willing to ask for it.
And trusting that the help is there.
Yes. And that brings us back to the heart of Pure Land Buddhism. It's about having faith in Amida Buddha's vow.
And knowing that his compassion is always available to us.
So we have the Nembutsu for connecting with Amida gratitude, for cultivating abundance, and this story as a reminder to surrender and ask for help.
Right. Those are all important pieces of the puzzle.
Are there any other practices that we can use to bring these teachings into our lives?
Yeah. The source material also talks about the importance of kindness.
Kindness.
Yeah. Remember the story of Dharmakara, the monk who became Amida Buddha?
Yeah.
His whole journey was motivated by compassion.
He wanted to help all beings.
Exactly. So when we practice kindness in our own lives, we're tapping into that same energy.
We're reflecting Amida's compassion out into the world.
Exactly. Even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all beings.
And treating everyone with respect and dignity.
I really like that. It's a simple but powerful way to practice Pure Land Buddhism.
And it's something we can do every day.
Okay, so to wrap up, it sounds like Pure Land Buddhism is all about trusting in Amida Buddha's compassion and letting go of the need to do everything ourselves.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're not alone on this journey and that there's always help available.
And we can connect with that help through practices like the Nembutsu, gratitude, surrender, and kindness.
Right. It's a path that offers a lot of hope and support.
I think that's a really beautiful message, especially in the world we live in today.
Me too. It's a reminder that we don't have to face our challenges alone.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with me. It's been a really enlightening conversation.
You're welcome. I'm glad we could have this deep dive together.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed learning about Pure Land Buddhism.
And if you did, please leave us a review.
And subscribe to the show for more deep dives into fascinating topics.
Until next time, may you find peace and joy on your journey.